the final step then of mapping the data into a table in Excel is just a matter then of copying the information out of the data that you've been given, whether it's in a report format like this or just in a paragraph describing the requirements of the system or whatever, right? So I just make sure it all fits basically and that it looks right. It's kind of a, pretty simple in a one table situation like this. But later on, you see it really helps you to analyze and see when you have multiple entities how they really relate to each other and so on. So I'm not going to type all of them in, but let's just say Marsh. Can I even copy out of this? Ooh, looks like I can. Can I? It's a PDF file. So 222 Marcia. Sorry, Marcia. And her title is Gopher. And her salary is 59,000. And a start date 19. Well, I'm going to be lazy. Okay. So, we're only given a few records. If I had time, I would do all four, but I'm just trying to demonstrate and teach here. So, this is an example then of basically um, mapping the data into a table, right? And it's a very good way to kind of double check that everything is fitting in, that it looks right, and so on and so forth. So with the table design chart done now, we're ready to actually go in and actually create this table. Okay, so I have Management Studio open, and I'm just going to go into my database here. So if you want to get in, I should have mentioned earlier because it takes a little while to get in. Okay, remember I had my one department table I created the other day on Monday. So if I open a new query window, then I should be ready to start creating employee. Nope, wrong bracket. Too much JavaScript work lately, sorry. Since I know it's going to take people a little while to get Management Studio open, I'm going to digress for a moment and get on my pulpit about the semicolon. Haha, you didn't think I meant it. Okay, the semicolon. Like earlier versions of JavaScript, semicolons were supposed to be there, but most interpreters would work anyway, even if you forgot it. Now they're getting a lot more strict. SQL is kind of the same. The semicolons do mark the end of a command, and that's useful. But you know what? These days it's more useful for you reading it than the computer. Computer reliably will figure out when a command ends. So although most code samples you see will usually have semicolons at the end of a command in SQL, they really aren't needed anymore. Does that mean you shouldn't do it? Of course, feel free. Okay. But if I forget once in a while, it's because I've probably gotten out of the habit of even worrying about them anymore. Because the system very reliably can tell the end of a command without me having to put the semicolon, right? So I'll probably try to put it to be a good example. But if I forget once in a while, feel free to remind me and I'll try to be good again. But you know what? After a while, you'll probably follow my bad example anyway. So there you go. There, I'm going to get off my pulpit and sit back down. Okay, so, right, so just following my table design chart, which if I had two monitors, I could leave up at the same time, but I don't. So char 3 is what we decided. Now we need a colon, sorry, there I'm messing it up. We need a comma here, right, to go on to define the next field. This could all be on one big line of code and that would be fine. All right. Okay, so as I said, the comma is necessary to go on to our next field. Technically, you could do this all on one line of code, but that makes it very hard to read. So we usually space it out like this. It's a lot easier to diagnose what's going wrong if we have a syntax error and so on as well. So EMP, oh, I should have looked first. And if you like to keep them lined up, then just tabs make it easy to do that. Just add an extra tab. It's not going to hurt. Extra white space comes for free. Varchar 50. And salary. Starry eyes. Ooh, that's a good song. Oh, okay. Now, I put a comma there because I know even though that's the end of the fields, I'm not quite finished defining everything about the table. What we did the other day is we used this approach of defining the additional constraints before we're done the create table statement. And we indicate it's a constraint with keyword constraint. The color coding helps a little bit, helps me catch my typos when I make them. As you see, I do lots. And then we give it a name, right? So kind of our naming convention we'll probably follow is PK. Now, whether you capitalize it or not, I think should be personal choice. If you want to put it in lowercase letters, that's fine. I'm only doing that because when the system creates it, they always put a capital PK if it does it automatically on its own. And then the table name, and then the field or fields making up the primary key would be, a good naming convention to follow for the last part of the identifier for the primary key. Oop, I hit a tab there instead of a caps lock. Okay, so that's probably a reasonable name. If you have all lower letters, lowercase, that's fine. I don't care. Okay, as long as it's that format. PK is important to have at the front, although some people put it at the end. I like it at the front. Employee number. Okay. Now, no, not yet, because we aren't finished. If we're saying constraint, we're giving it a name, but we're going to find there's a whole bunch of different constraints. Later on, I'm going to learn more and more. There's check constraints, there's foreign key constraints, and so on. But this one is just our primary key, so that's the next thing I put. Primary key, and the bracket. It can go right after the letter Y. It doesn't matter. The white space doesn't hurt. And then in brackets, I just put the name or names if it's going to be a composite, right? A composite key is one that combines fields together, but it's not. It's just a single field, so just EMP-NO. No comma this time. I'll put that there just to show you the errors. Now, one of the things that is available here, see this little check mark up top? I put a comma to show you I'm going to get an error. So don't put a comma. But there's this little parse checkbox up here. Kind of useful sometimes, just to check before you actually run it. You can click that, and if it says completed successfully, then you know that it didn't find any errors parsing it. Now, actually, should have caught that. I thought it would have. I guess parse it's not perfect. Uh, no, but if I go to actually execute the command, ah, I'm upset that it's working. I wanted to show you it failed miserably to crash and burn. Ah, it is. It is. They keep, see now, I got an error there, unknown object type, right? Because I took out the table. When you say create, you have to say what kind of object. Well, see, it used to give an error. I guess what they've done is they figure that you're just being an idiot and there's nothing after it, so we might as well ignore it. Okay, darn. One thing else that won't cause a problem is if IntelliSense catches up. There we go. So you can tell that that isn't a valid field name. I'm trying to create a primary key on something that isn't there. Right, that Elmo. Okay, so there's some syntax will come up here. Like if I, have some extra letters in there, then it's going to underline that and say, I don't know what, invalid data type the data type that is, and so on. So a certain amount of help is here with our syntax. But, in the end, because we're just doing one command, right? That's a key point. We're just doing one thing here in my whole script, a single command called create table in this case. I can run it, and if it doesn't work, well, I haven't actually done any work. Okay, it gave me this error message, unknown object type, right? Because I had taken out the keyword table. So I know that nothing actually was done. Okay, so I don't have to worry about, oh, did I create it in a improper way? No, I didn't. Nothing's been happened, so I'm okay. So I should be able to execute it now and actually create the table. Ah, there's already one named employee. Yeah. Remember it worked with the comma? Yeah. So it did work. Okay. Now, if I wasn't happy, say I actually went this far, oh no, and I realized, I perhaps I had that still, right? So I created the field name. No, that's not a syntax error. It wouldn't cause any runtime errors. Would have successfully created the table that way, and that's maybe not the way I wanted it, right? In truth, you could actually write an alter command, which we'll learn more about alter commands later. But at this stage, the easiest thing would be to say undo, right? Well, guess what? There is no undo in SQL. Basically, we're running in a mode called auto commit mode, where as soon as you execute a command, it commits it to the database. So the other thing I could do is say drop table. Think of it like delete, right? But we create objects and then we can drop objects. So if I wanted to drop this table, I'll put that back so it's start again. Say I did make it with the wrong field name or something like that, or I wanted to add something else or change something about it, a data type even, then I could just say drop table, case insensitive, but employee. Oh, see, and we did actually get IntelliSense for the name of the table. It actually saw what I have. Creating the table will be dropped as an object. All these become objects on the database server. So when I create a table, it's a table object living in my database on the server. Well, you kind of see it best over here visually in terms of the Object Explorer, right? So you can see you'll have tables. Each table has columns and keys and constraints, and later on you'll learn about indexes and triggers and so on as well. Um, drop table employee. Let me execute that. Now that completed successfully. If I come back over here and refresh again, expanding the tables node, see now employee is gone. Okay, I've dropped it. It's no longer there. As an object, it does not exist. Now remember, our department table had data in it because we ran inserts the other day, which is why I was able to go select. By the way, if you do this, a bit of a trick. Right? Select from department. Then when I come up here to start defining fields, then I will actually start to get field names in the IntelliSense. Right? Department budget, code name. I'm getting IntelliSense only because I have actually already told it what I'm selecting from. So there's the departments table is still there. I didn't drop it. I only dropped the employee table. There's, that's right. I'm doing it because I'm talking about how if I did want to change the design, right? So maybe I'd left out the date by accident. I could run this as a create table statement. If I come over here, have a look, I'll refresh, have a look in tables, have a look at employee, look at the columns, and you can see right there, oh, darn, I'm missing the start date, right? There's no field to hold that attribute of the entity. There's no field in the table for that because I messed up and I missed it when I created the table. If I try to just add it back in here, well, I think I can Control Z. If I run this create again, it won't work because there's already an object named employee in the database. I can't create something that's already there. However, what I can do to fix it, I can say drop the employee object or employee table. Now I can rerun my create statement. Okay, so there's not a built-in undo, but because I can drop things and then run the create again, and that's another reason why it's a good idea to save these scripts. It's true that the table's there, it exists as an object in the database, but your script isn't there, right? You wrote that yourself, and unless you save the script file, you don't have a copy of it. Actually, Marcia in her video emphasizes good idea to, before you even start working, come in here, do a save as, so you actually have it saved. Then you can just click the save button every once in a while. Yeah, .sql, yeah. So, I can just put it here on my desktop for now. Create employee, right? So when you come to do your labs and so on, sometimes what you'll be doing is you'll be handing in these script files, even on tests, right? So that's basically what you'll do is you'll save them as a .sql file, which is really just a notepad file, right? It's just the .sql extension lets the system know to open that in Management Studio. Because, well, we haven't created addition. The primary is part of the object itself. It's not an add-on constraint. Yeah. Good question, though. Okay, so we should be ready just before we have a break here to come back to Blackboard. And remember, I did have, got to go up and up because I'm zoomed in so far. Here's my employee inserts. So if I open that with Management Studio, oh, I hope it doesn't open a new instance of Management Studio. It might. I should have just saved it. Yeah. It's opening a new instance. Oh, well. I'll just cancel for now. I'll copy that. Go back to the one I have open. I can just click New Query to open a new tab if I want, or I could have just pasted it in down here. Right? I could just paste the text in here. Just be careful though, when I go to execute this, I want to make sure I'm selecting just what I want to execute, right? You'll get used to that more and more because we'll be doing it constantly. You select the text that you actually want to execute, and then, yes, I got a whole series of one row affected messages, no error messages. So it looks like I should have successfully inserted all my records into the employee table. So let's come down here and let's just try select. Again, if I plan ahead a little bit, say I'm going to select from employee, then I should get some intel. By the way, the IntelliSense in this system I find is really slow. So sometimes what you can do to help hurry it up, if you click edit, go down to IntelliSense and tell it to refresh local cache. If you remember Control Shift R, then that's a way to. Now it's unhappy because I haven't mentioned any fields yet, but it's still not giving it to. Okay, let's execute that. So I do have the data there. Okay. Before I inserted it, I just made sure I created the table again, and then I grabbed the data off of Blackboard. I pasted it into here. Well, that was just it's just another command that I wrote in this script. You can have as many commands in here as you want. That's right. Yeah. So if I want to execute this select, now I'm seeing the data returned there that I've asked for. Okay, my IntelliSense is still complaining it doesn't understand the employee table, but I don't know why that is. So there's data coming from the. Now I didn't select all the fields yet, right? I could. The short form for doing that, I showed you the other day, was to select star from employee, and that will return all columns. Okay. The only thing is, you don't have any ability to change the order. They're going to come in the order that they were listed in the create table statement. So if you didn't want to change the order, you have to spell them out. But select star from employee just gets all the data that I've inserted into the employee table.